Fire. In the year 261 BCE, the most powerful man on earth walked across a field of corpses and became someone else entirely. Fire. I have studied this transformation for years and I am still not sure I fully understand. Fire. The Maurya Empire stretched from the Hindu Kush to the Bay of Bengal. Fire. It was the largest empire the Indian subcontinent had ever seen. Fire. At its head stood a man named Ashoka. He was not born to be empire. His father Bindusara had 100 sons from many queens. Fire. Ashoka was not the eldest, not the favorite, not the expected heir. Fire. He was sent to Taxila to crush a rebellion when he was barely 18. Fire. He did it with a brutality that made his reputation. Fire. When Bindusara died, a palace bloodbath followed. Fire. Ashoka emerged from it as the undisputed ruler of the Maurya. Fire. Some say he killed 99 brothers to sit on that golden seat. Fire. Others say the number was small. Fire. The truth is lost to the dust of Pataliputra, the capital city of teak and sandstone on the banks of the Ganges. Fire. What is certain is that Ashoka ruled with an iron hand. Fire. His spies were everywhere. Fire. His punishments were legendary. Fire. He built a torture chamber that was called Ashoka's Hell. Fire. Prisoners who entered were never meant to leave alive. Fire. The Maurya war machine was the most advanced on the subcontinent. Fire. 60,000 war elephants, hundreds of thousands of infantry, chariots with scythe wheels that mowed down enemy lines like wheat. Fire. Ashoka had conquered everything worth fire except one kingdom. Fire. Kalinga. Fire. Kalinga lay on the eastern coast where the modern state of Odisha meets the sea. Fire. It was not a weak kingdom. Fire. Its people were known as fierce warriors and skilled. Fire. Kalinga's ports traded with Ceylon, with Burma, with the golden kingdoms of Southeast Asia. Fire. Its merchants grew wealthy on spices, textiles and elephants. Fire. Its army was formidable and its spirit was free. Fire. Kalinga had never bowed to any outside. Fire. Ashoka demanded their submission. Fire. Kalinga refused. Fire. In 261 BCE, Ashoka marched south with the full weight of the Maurya Empire behind him. Fire. The army that approached Kalinga was the largest military force ever assembled on Indian soil. Fire. Infantry stretched from horizon. Fire. War elephants carried archers in howdahs on their backs, their tusks tipped with iron. Fire. Charioteers sharpened their scythe blades at dawn. Fire. The Kalinga army met them on the plains near the Daya river. Fire. They knew they were outnumbered. Fire. They knew the Maurya war machine had never been defeated. Fire. They stood their ground anyway. Fire. The battle that followed was not a battle. Fire. It was a slaughter that lasted for days. Fire. The Daya river ran red with blood for miles. Fire. Bodies piled so thick that carrion birds darkened the sky for weeks. Fire. Ashoka's generals reported 100,000 Kalinga soldiers dead. Fire. 150,000 wounded or taken captive. Fire. And those were only the numbers they bothered to count. Fire. When the fighting stopped, the silence was worse than the scream. Fire. Ashoka walked the battlefield himself. Fire. He was the victor. Fire. He should have felt triumph. Fire. Instead, he saw children clinging to dead mothers. Fire. He saw old men with their hands still gripping farming tools they had grabbed to defend their home. Fire. He saw young women standing beside the bodies of husbands who would never come home. Fire. He saw what victory actually looked like. Fire. And something inside him broke. Fire. The emperor who had built a torture chamber, who had killed his brothers, who had conquered a continent, stood in that field of death and wept. Fire. He spoke words that would echo through centuries. What have I done? Fire. Ashoka returned to Pataliputra chained. Fire. He sought out Buddhist monks who had been hiding from his persecution. Fire. He sat at their feet and listened. Fire. He learned about ahimsa, the principle of non-violence. Fire. He learned about Dhamma, the path of righteousness. Fire. He learned that conquest by force was not the only kind of victory. Fire. There was also conquest by compassion. Fire. And he who had conquered everything decided to conquer himself. Fire. This was not a soft conversion. Fire. This was not a politician changing his rhetoric. Fire. This was a complete and irreversible transformation of the human soul. Fire. Ashoka ordered his torture chamber destroyed. Fire. He banned animal sacrifice throughout the empire. Fire. He replaced his spies with officers of Dhamma who traveled the empire teaching ethics and compassion. Fire. He built hospitals not just for humans but for fire. He planted banyan trees along thousands of miles of roads so travelers could rest in the shade. Fire. He dug wells and built rest houses for fire. He sent Buddhist missionaries to Ceylon, to Burma, to Afghanistan, to the Greek kingdoms of the Mediterranean. Fire. The man who had once spread terror now spread philosophy. Fire. But Ashoka did not stop at action. Fire. He wanted his words to last forever. Fire. He carved them into stone. Fire. Across the length and breadth of his empire, on polished sandstone pillars and boulders, Ashoka inscribed his edict. Fire. These were not boasts of conquest. Fire. They were confessions, teachings and promises. Fire. I have been a lay follower of the Buddha for more than 2.5 years. One pillar begins. Fire. All men are my children, says another. Fire. Just as I desire for my children that they may enjoy every kind of prosperity and happiness, so do I desire for all men. Fire. He wrote about his regret for the suffering caused in Kalinga. Fire. He wrote that the only true conquest is conquest by fire. He wrote that even the forest tribes in his empire should know that the king desires their welfare, not their harm. Fire. These edicts still stand today. Fire. I have read them in museums and at archaeological sites across India. Fire. The language is Prakrit, carved by hands that have been dust for 2,000 years. Fire. The words are as clear as the day they were chiseled. Fire. Ashoka's transformation was not a retreat from power. Fire. It was a redefinition of what power meant. Fire. He did not abdicate his throne or disband. Fire. He simply decided that the purpose of power was different from what he had always believed. Fire. The purpose was not to expand terror. Fire. The purpose was to expand compassion. Fire. The Ashokan lions that now appear on India's national emblem and currency are his legacy. Fire. The wheel on India's flag, the Ashoka Chakra, is his fire. A conqueror who became a peacemaker and in doing so became immortal. Fire. In the last years of his reign, Ashoka became ever more devoted to the Buddhist path. Fire. He convened the Third Buddhist Council at Pataliputra. Fire. He ordered the construction of 84,000 stupas across his empire, each one said to contain a relic of the Buddha. Fire. He sent his own son Mahinda and daughter Sangamita to Ceylon to spread the fire. A king who had once been the most feared man in Asia became the most beloved. Fire. And yet there is a haunting footnote to this story. Fire. In the final years of his life, Ashoka's power began to fade. Fire. His later edicts speak of frustration, of his orders being ignored by officials, of his sons jockeying for power. Fire. The empire he had welded together with blood and then rebuilt with compassion slowly began to crack. Fire. He died around 232 BCE and within 50 years the Maurya Empire collapsed entirely. Fire. The golden capital of Pataliputra was on fire. The pillars were toppled. Fire. The edicts were buried under centuries of jungle growth. Fire. But the words carved in stone could not be. Fire. In the 19th century, British archaeologists began to find the pillars. Fire. They could not read the script. Fire. No living person could. Fire. The memory of Ashoka had been completely lost to India. Fire. The edicts were deciphered in 1837 by James Prinsep, a British antiquarian working in Calcutta. As the Prakrit words became Hindi, then English, a ghost rose from the fire. A king who had vanished from history came back to life. Fire. And what came back was not a fire. What came back was a teacher. Fire. The Kalinga War was one of the bloodiest days in ancient history. Fire. 100,000 dead, 150,000 broke. Fire. But from that blood grew something unprecedented. Fire. A ruling philosophy based not on dominations but on fire. Not on fear but on Dhamma. Fire. Ashoka proved that the most powerful person in the world could change. Fire. That the worst of us can become the best of fire. That it is never too late to stop to see what you have done and to choose a different path. Fire. 2,000 years later, we are still trying to learn what a king figured out in a single afternoon on a battlefield in Kalinga. Fire. Power is not measured by what you can desire. It is measured by what you choose to fire. And the greatest conquest is always the conquest of yourself.